Here in America, the Corolla nameplate has been around for over 50 years, and with over 46 million of these vehicles sold globally, an all-new version is a pretty big deal for Toyota. So today I'm out here just outside of Savannah, Georgia to drive the all-new 12th generation model. Toyota says it's the most comprehensive redesign in the Corolla's 54-year history. So the big question I want answered, is this all-new Corolla the compact car to get for 2020? That's what we're here to find out. So about a year ago, I showed you guys the all-new Corolla hatchback, and that was kind of designed to replace the old Toyota IM and the old Toyota Matrix. So the sedan version is really the one that Toyota sells most of. Last year alone, they did about 280,000 sales. So this is a more important model versus the hatchback. Toyota says that the hatch model only accounts for about 10% of total global sales. You can see the design for the all-new 12th generation has an entirely new look, but honestly, it takes a lot of styling cues from the hatchback, which it itself is already a pretty handsome looking vehicle. The front fascia, you can see these LED headlights are going to be standard equipment across the board. Toyota calls them a J-shaped LED running light with the double or the bi-LED elements. But basically, the XSE trim that I'm showing you here has an upgraded headlight that it shares with the SE and the hybrid version of this vehicle, which is again a new addition for 2020. Compared to the hatchback, you can see the front grille and front fascia is slightly different. You have this new like black area here in the upper portion of this grille over here, and then the XSE and SE trim gives you this mesh finish with the additional LED accent here at the lower fascia. Compared to the hatch, there's no fog lights. Toyota offers LED fog lights on the hatchback, but the Sedan instead gives you a different front fascia with either an LED running light if you guys go for this particular trim, or nothing if you guys go for the other trims. Overall, I think it looks particularly good. I think Toyota has done a really good job with moving the Corolla to the TNGA platform and implementing a much more sleek design versus the previous generation. So from the side profile of the all-new 2020 Sedan, you can see from this part to about the A-pillar, it's pretty much identical to the hatchback, although from there on forward you can see it's a completely different look. Just like the hatchback, as I said, it rides on the TNGA platform, so it's an all-new platform compared to the previous generation. And unlike the hatchback, the Sedan is significantly larger, but it's actually a little bit smaller versus the previous generation. Its wheelbase is the same at 106.3. Overall length is 182.3 inches long. It's about 0.8 inches shorter and also 0.8 inches lower in height, but 0.2 inches wider. So again, going with that TNGA theme, Toyota made this vehicle a little bit shorter, but also made it a little bit wider to give it a better stance. Now, the wheel choices you can see on this XSE version, you have 18-inch wheels, which are standard equipment. The SE also gets 18-inch wheels. If you guys go for the L trim, you'll have a 15-inch wheel, and then the LE and XLE offers a 16-inch wheel, and alloy is an option if you guys go for a premium package. Now, because this is on an all-new platform, the biggest change is Toyota added a multi-link independent rear suspension, which replaces the twist beam of the previous generation. That's going to dramatically improve the handling, the ride quality, and that's a big deal for this generation. Especially if you guys know the all-new Mazda 3 is coming out soon, and that now has a twist beam semi-independent rear suspension, whereas Toyota has now moved to a fully independent. Toyota also made rear disc brakes standard on every trim. The previous generation, if you guys had to go for the SE trims to get the rear disc brakes, where now Toyota makes it a standard on all the grades. Overall, I think the side profile definitely looks like a traditional sedan. It's not really going to wow you with these really sharp character lines, but I think it'll definitely keep people interested when they look at this vehicle from the side profile. Now, obviously, from the rear profile of the new Corolla, this is where it's going to look entirely different versus the hatchback version, and it also looks very different versus the previous generation sedan. I think that Toyota went with a pretty clean look. It's obviously not quite as aggressive looking as the hatchback model. This XSE trim gets smoked rear taillights with kind of an LED combination. The turn signal here is just an incandescent, which is in contrast to the LED turn signal at the front of the vehicle. The XSE also gives you this gray painted rear color keyed lip spoiler, which definitely looks nice. You have this little black bar that kind of connects the two taillight modules consoles together. And then down here you have a more aggressive rear underbody diffuser with the twin outlet exhaust tips, which are chrome tipped. The XSE and SE trims are the only trims to actually get the chrome tipped exhaust, which makes the Corolla look a little bit nicer. Now, in terms of the trunk capacity, Toyota also didn't really change it. You're still looking at around 13 cubic feet of space. The seats themselves, they fold down 60/40, and then if you look underneath the floor here, Toyota gives you a temporary spare tire. So the outside of the new Corolla is all new, but let's hop into the interior and see all the changes Toyota has made this year. You can see here is the key fob for the vehicle. Most of the upper trims of the Corolla, I believe if you go for an LE premium package and up, you'll get the smart access system with push button start. So just keep this key fob in your pocket or your purse. As you approach the door handle, you're going to notice there's an area here on the door handle where you can touch. That will lock the doors for you. And if you want to unlock it, Toyota does a sensor in the back of the handle. Just touch that and it'll unlock the door for you. Now, looking at the interior of this particular XSE, you're going to notice it has a Softex leatherette material with kind of the blue accented stitching. It also has a different material on the insert here. It definitely looks nice. These seats are aggressively bolstered on the SE and the XSE trim. They're very similar to what I've shown you guys in the hatchback model. You'll also get an 8-way power driver's seat with a 4-way manual on the passenger side with a 2-way lumbar support. Something that Toyota is missing is no memory seats on this particular model. Some competitors do offer memory seats. Toyota also only offers a 2-level heated seat. If you guys want heated seats, you have to get the Softex leather material or leatherette material you guys get in the XLE and XSE grades. Now, stepping into the interior, the new Corolla sedan definitely has a lower step-in height versus the previous generation. You're going to notice that. And then when you shut the door, it definitely reminds me a lot of the Camry's door sound when it shuts. It kind of, not quite as solid as I'd like it to sound, but it sounds a lot better versus the previous generation that I last showed you guys a year or two ago. Now, to start the vehicle up, just put your foot on the brake, push this button here to fire up the engine. Now you can see this particular trim has the upgraded infotainment system. It's a 7-inch multi-information display. If you guys go for any other, or the lower trims like the SE, the LE trim, you'll just have a 4.2-inch display that's on the right side. This display, you can also interchange it. It does change color when you guys put it into sport mode. You can see the speedometer turns red. It's definitely a nice looking display. Not as high-tech as some of the competitors that I've seen, like from Volkswagen in the Jetta with the digital cockpit display. The rest of this interior, you can see, it's very familiar to the hatchback model, which has some familiarity to the previous generation, especially this upper part of the dash. It actually just looks like the same soft touch injection molded plastic with the color contrasting stitching as the previous generation. Down here, you can see it's also soft touch, but it's also a faux stitching material. It's definitely nice. Soft touch over here. When you look at the door panels here, you can see the upper door panel on the driver's side is also soft touch. The windows are one-touch automatic up-down for both, or for all 4 windows, which is definitely a nice feature. The steering wheel also is a manual tilt telescoping, which offers a fairly good amount of range, which is great for finding a comfortable driving position. The steering wheel itself is basically the same steering wheel that I showed you guys on the Camry and the new Avalon. It's got paddles on the wheel. It has new cruise control switches, your steering wheel audio controls, all that stuff. Now, as you can see here, the 8-inch touchscreen on this particular one, this is the upgraded JBL with the embedded navigation. Apple CarPlay and Amazon Alexa is standard equipment. As you can see, it's definitely nice. Android Auto, if you guys are looking for that, it's still not on this 2020 Corolla sedan, but Toyota just showed off their TRD Pro lineup, which has Android Auto. They said they're going to make it a priority to upgrade these to include Android Auto in the future. But until then, sorry, Android users, you're going to have to be out of luck or wait until Toyota to actually introduce the Android Auto edition. As you can see here, the Waze navigation definitely looks nice. It's basically what you see on your phone. It's a little bit sluggish at times, but that's kind of the case with every Apple CarPlay vehicle that I test out. The Toyota infotainment system, as you can see, this is Entune 3.0. The navigation display itself has definitely been beefed up in terms of the speed. The map quality definitely doesn't look all that impressive. It's a little bit old, but overall you can see here's the home screen. You can customize this to whatever option you want to put here besides your phone or radio or whatnot. So it definitely works well. You're going to get in this, you're going to know how to use it. It also has that new tablet style screen. If you guys go for a base L model, you'll have a 7-inch screen as opposed to the 8-inch screen that's standard on all the other trims. When you put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's a backup camera, no trajectory, just a pretty basic backup camera with your distance markers. Toyota doesn't offer a 360 camera system, which is kind of what I expected. Most vehicles in this segment don't. Down here you can see the LE trims and up will have an automatic climate control system. However, it is only a single zone. Some competitors now offer a dual zone, so that's a little bit of a ding for Toyota's part. Down here is where the wireless charging pad would be, or you could put a place for your phone. You have 2-level heated seats over here, no cooled seats. You have a sport mode here, which will basically adjust the drive mode with the throttle response. The steering can turn off the stability control there. This controls the CVT transmission. It does have a manual mode over here, or you can use the paddles on the wheel or access the sport mode. Electronic parking brake. This is basically the same center console in the hatchback. You have two cup holders here. This right here, Toyota says they've lengthened the center console armrest lid by about 1 inch to make this a little bit more comfortable. As you can see, there's another USB port in there. Power outlet, it's a little bit on the smaller side. Some of the piano black plastic trim in here definitely brightens up the cabin, makes it look a little bit nicer. The seats, as you can see, they are definitely aggressively bolstered. They do hug you. I also find them to be comfortable. I like the Softex leatherette material. And then above you can see sunroof that's included on most of the upper trims. It's like an $800 option if you guys want the sunroof on the LE. Pano sunroof not available, but the hatch model doesn't offer a sunroof, so the sedan does, which is definitely great. The glove compartment, you can see, it's actually a pretty good size. The lid itself is damped. It's not lined with felt, but overall storage is a little bit lacking. I've driven some of the competition offers a little bit better in terms of storage capacity, but Toyota has thrown in a fairly good amount of features. The JBL audio system in this particular one is 800 watts of power and like 9 speakers with a sub. So it's basically the same system in the Camry. It sounds great. Overall, a lot of you are going to find features that you like, and then there are also some missing features that some of the competition as well offers you. So the Corolla hatchback, the new one, was definitely tight in the rear seat area. The sedan has always been pretty class leading in this particular space. The new version, as you can see, Toyota actually rates the legroom significantly less. The old one had like 41 inches of legroom. This has now been downgraded to 35 or 34.8 inches, which is about 6.5 inches less. Toyota says the reason for the change is because the front seat back moves further back in the track to give front seat passengers more legroom, although I'm just noticing that the actual interior space just feels a little bit more cramped. It's dimensionally, it's only about 88.6 inches versus 110.15. So this new platform has definitely shrunk the interior, but you can see here, getting back here, I'm 5'7". I do have a good amount of legroom, good foot space. The floor is almost completely flat back here. So even though the numbers suggest it's a lot more cramped, it doesn't feel super cramped for somebody that's my height. Now, there's no rear seat vents, there's no heated rear seats. Some competitors do offer that, but thankfully, if you guys go for an LE trim and up, Toyota gives you the fold-down armrest here with dual cup holders, but just keep in mind that some competitors do offer more in terms of features. So with an all-new platform this year, Toyota is introducing an all-new powertrain as well. Now, the base L, LE, and XLE, or Toyota calls them the modern grades, will actually use a carryover 1.8-liter four-cylinder with valve-matic. It was actually the same motor in the LE Eco from last year. This year, it only makes 139 horsepower and 126 foot-pounds of torque. That's actually one less horsepower versus the 2019 model year. Now, those of you who choose an SE or an XSE trim, like this particular one, will get the all-new 2-liter dynamic force four-cylinder engine. This is the engine that's in the Corolla hatchback. It has direct and port injection. It has a very high compression ratio, and this motor makes 169 horsepower and 151 foot-pounds of torque. That's like roughly 37 more ponies than what you got in last year's 1.8 at the base end. So it's a pretty significant jump. However, you have to get this upgraded or this sport-oriented trim to get this motor. So that's something that I imagine a lot of you may end up doing. Now, you can take your pick between either a CVT, that's the old CVT on the base 1.8, or a new 6-speed manual with the rev-matching function that the hatchback also has, or you can also choose between this CVT that this one has with a actual physical first gear. So that actually allows for much smoother starts. It makes the vehicle feel a little bit more like a conventional automatic. We'll go into that later on in the test drive. Now, fuel economy has also been improved, although it's not what I would say class leading. Toyota says that the base 1.8 will do about 30 in the city and 38 on the highway, depending on the trims, which is again actually a 2 mpg reduction versus the previous generation. This one here was rated at 31-38 because it's the XSE. The best version that gets fuel economy is the SE with the CVT, which offers up to 40 mpg, still that same 31 mpg rating. Now, if you guys want better gas mileage, the Corolla is available for the first time in the US with a hybrid system, which is basically the same one in the Prius. That's rated at 53 in the city, 52 on the highway, made it with a CVT. The new Corolla is roughly between 80 to 250 pounds heavier, depending on this trim. This particular one, Toyota says, weighs around 3,150 pounds. Let's get out on the road and see how it performs. So for the driving portion of the 2020 Corolla, you can see I've got my good friend Alex Dykes from Alex on Autos joining me here in Savannah. And we actually just finished doing this crazy driving test where the Toyota rep had to grade his driving. I didn't actually do it because I just sat in the back seat and watched, but he had a you had to do some reverse J turns and 3-point turns, and you passed at least.
I passed. Or did you do the test because you can't parallel park?
I can parallel park, but I was kind of just like, we have some filming to do, but maybe I'll do it when we're done. But anyways, driving the 2020 Corolla Sedan, Alex just did his part, and I have to say, I just drove the hatchback version with the manual transmission. This one is the CVT with the physical first gear, so it's technically the transmission that most people are going to buy. First setting off in this thing, it definitely just feels like the Corolla hatchback. If you guys like the way the hatchback drives, you'll pretty much like the way this drives. It doesn't really feel all that different to me. What about you, Alex? Did it feel
Not really,
the same?
it just feels like the sedan version.
Yeah, I mean, looking out of the front, you can see the visibility is pretty much identical. There's this new window here just in front of the side mirror. The A-pillar here is a little bit on the thicker side, but the hood is, you can't really see the hood. Although the dash is fairly long, I would have to say that some other vehicles have a slightly better visibility. For me, view out of the back, though, is good. All the Toyota Safety Sense stuff is standard here. The Toyota Safety Sense P 2.0, so you have the active lane trace assist, you've got the pedestrian detection, adaptive cruise control with full speed range. So, I mean, the Corolla, in terms of safety, is right up there at the top of its game. And I'm going to try to see if I can drive a manual transmission version later. There's also a hybrid, and then there's the 1.8-liter engine. But because you guys really like the sport-oriented models, let's try to focus on this particular model. But I have to say that the ride quality of this vehicle is definitely firm. I don't know if I'd have to drive the old one back to back. I haven't driven the old one in a couple years, but it definitely feels on the firmer side. The fully independent suspension in the back definitely improves the handling and whatnot. The steering in this car is pretty light and numb, kind of typical with a vehicle in this segment. So with 169 horsepower, this 2-liter engine definitely has a lot more power than the old one, and when you put your foot down, it actually provides really decent acceleration. I'm surprised. Like Toyota, the hatchback would get to 60 in around 8 seconds. I think your video you said 7.9.
Yeah, 7.9 is what we got.
Which is pretty good, although the new Civic will smoke this. But Honda's 1.5 turbo is just fast in general. But if you guys prefer a naturally aspirated engine, you're going to really like the way this feels. It also has a fairly decent sound. I mean, it's got that typical Toyota refinement. It's a smooth engine. What really impresses me about this car are the paddle shifters. When you pull the paddle, it has 10 simulated ratios, and it actually does a really good job. I had a Nissan Maxima last week, and it did not do as well when I pulled the paddle.
Yeah, this transmission shifts ratios much faster than the Nissan CVT.
Yeah, and it actually has it does a fairly good job of simulating a gear shift. Like it actually, feels like it actually shifts gears, which, I mean, hey, if they're going to give us a CVT and it feels like a traditional automatic, I'm not going to complain because it doesn't have any of that rubber bandy, slippy feel like some CVTs have. So I'm pretty happy with it. The noise levels in here, they're pretty average for me. I mean, I guess I know you do your interior sound testing with the decibel meters, but I mean, this class of vehicle, they're all pretty much around this noise. There's a fairly good amount of road noise, but the engine stays pretty quiet. Wind noise is fairly hushed, but mostly I just hear road noise. And I imagine if you guys get the lower trims with the smaller wheels and tires, you won't have quite as much road noise to deal with. So Toyota bills the XSE model as the sport-oriented version, and they say there's a flavor there's a flavor Corolla for every buyer. And as the sport-oriented model, I have to say that it's definitely no sports sedan. This is no Golf GL or Jetta GLI or Civic Si. It really could be if Toyota just put a turbo with this 2-liter. An extra 100 horsepower would be awesome, and the steering could use a little bit more weight to it. I mean, they already offer a 6-speed manual with the rev-matching feature, which is only available on the SE Sedan. But hey, you have to give Toyota credit for offering that, because if you want a manual in a Civic, you have to buy a bare bones base model, or even the sport trim is missing things like the Apple CarPlay, which is standard on the Corolla, so that's definitely a plus.
And you still get radar adaptive cruise control with the manual, which is a nice touch.
Yeah, because Honda don't do the Honda sensing, at least not on the Civic with a manual. They do it on the Accord, I remember, but it doesn't come to a full stop. All right, turn off the traction control. Let's see if it'll actually burn a little rubber when you put your foot down from a stop. No.
And the one pity is that after the first gear is done, it doesn't just vary the ratios, it imitates those shifts.
Right.
It actually gets you to 60 slower than if it just hung out there and buzzed at 7,000 RPM the whole time.
And I have to agree with that, but it does sound better, at least. So
right.
they did that on purpose, because enthusiasts, we don't like to hear the whiny drone of a 4-cylinder. But hey, this thing actually, it has a pretty good amount of power. This is way faster than the old Corolla sedan with the 1.8. So if you guys prefer driving that, you can still buy the new one with the 1.8, which I haven't driven yet. I'm going to try to see if I can take one out for a spin as well. I don't understand why Toyota didn't make the 2-liter standard. Like, I get it, it's probably for a cost-saving measure, but how many people actually take the, the LE trim versus the SE trim? Because you have to get an SE or an XSE to get this 2-liter, and it's a great powertrain. It gets better gas mileage, it's way quicker to 60, it's more refined, it's just the newer, it completes the car. Since this is an all-new platform, you really want to, have all of the new features instead of like a carryover engine from 10 years ago.
I also think it's a pity that they didn't try and snag some other more powerful engine to jam under the hood. Because the previous Corolla, I think it would have been weird to have more power, because the handling wasn't quite there, the feel wasn't quite there, the rear suspension wasn't where it needed to be. But this one feels like if it had more power, it wouldn't be out of place.
Yeah, it definitely could use more power. I think they also don't have really an engine that could do that right now, at least. Like Lexus.
2-liter turbo from the NX.
I'm always disappointed with that engine, though.
I'm disappointed with the 2-liter turbo in the NX.
Right.
But in this, that would be fun.
I have to say, it's perfectly adequate for what it is. Just a little bit raspy at those higher revs, but most of you are probably not going to push it as hard as I am or as hard as Alex would. But we like to test these cars to see what they're really like when people push them, and hey, it makes for an interesting drive. But overall, I think the Corolla, they've really improved the driving dynamics, the refinement, the technology. I really would love to see them do a full-on sport version. I'm disappointed that the interior in this car feels considerably more cramped versus the previous generation, but it's kind of the norm with the TNGA platform because the Camry has less space, and the Avalon honestly is not that roomy for a full-size sedan.
Prius, same thing.
Yeah, same thing with the Prius. But overall, I mean, it's a great chassis. It's still as practical ever. This is way more practical than the hatchback's rear seat. Like the hatchback's rear seat is just useless. It's like subcompact car small in the rear seat. But overall, I'm impressed with the Corolla. Is it enough to kind of make me choose one over its competition? I'm mostly looking forward to driving that new Mazda 3 next month. That's the one that I probably would want to drive. But is this comparable on par with the current Civic? I'd say yes. If as long as you don't get the turbo motor, like the base 2-liter would be very, very comparable to this. Although the Corolla does have slightly more appealing looks to me, because some of my viewers really don't like the way the Civic sedan looks. And also, I saw the refreshed 19 model. They just added that chrome at the bottom. I was kind of like, it looked better without it at this point. But since I'm on here on a short drive, I won't be able to give you guys any fuel economy information. I will say that the Corolla hatch, when I had that for a week, easily would get 40 mpg on the highway, and that was with the 6-speed manual. And to be honest, the manual is only rated at 36 in this car versus the automatic, which is rated at 38. So this engine, this powertrain is very efficient as long as you guys are able to drive it at a slower pace versus myself. So since Toyota will be selling more LE trims with the 1.8-liter engine, I've managed to snag an XLE trim level, and I also kind of kicked Alex out. He's actually in front of me in the hybrid model, so we can get some extra shots of the vehicles. But I wanted to talk a little bit about this 1.8-liter valve-matic engine with the old CVT, because this powertrain basically made the previous generation Corolla one of the slowest offerings in the segment. And I'm definitely noticing the lack of power in this one a little bit more. It feels like it gets to 60, maybe like 2 seconds slower versus that XSE with the 2-liter that I drove. The engine itself also, it's very breathless. It doesn't have very good low-end torque. You have to rev the snot out of the engine. With only 139 horsepower, this is on the lower end of the segment as well. Other vehicles have more power. This is very comparable to the Kia Forte and Hyundai Elantra with their 2-liter engines. Now, the one thing is this is the old CVT. It doesn't have that physical first gear or first launch gear or whatever like the one in the 2-liter. And I have to say, for a CVT, it's okay. There's a sport mode here as well, but there's no paddle shifters, which worked really well in the XSE. There's a little bit of a B engine braking gear or selection here in the transmission, which is actually kind of good when you're going downhill and you're looking for a little bit more engine braking. I'm gonna actually put it back into this mode. It's started raining a little bit here. This has smaller 16-inch wheels, so I am noticing the tires have slightly less grip versus the XSE. I'm trying not to push it too hard since the roads are a little bit damp. But the steering, as you can see, is still really good. This car feels a little bit lighter than the XSE. It's got a little bit less weight at the front, I want to say. But overall, it's still a pleasant driving car. It actually rides a little bit softer in this one, so if you don't like the somewhat harsh ride quality with the 18-inch wheels, you're gonna really prefer this one with the smaller 16-inch wheels. Puddle. Yeah, it's definitely been raining here in Georgia. But I mean, overall, you definitely feel a little bit more of a buzz from the engine. It's not quite the most pleasant sound. And I'm a little disappointed that Toyota didn't just make the 2-liter standard. I mean, this 1.8 doesn't get as good a gas mileage. It feels considerably slower. It still drives fine. I mean, people who want a Corolla at a lower price point, this is gonna accelerate fine. It feels like it gets to 60 in around 9.5 seconds. So it is a fair amount slower. But I do appreciate the softer ride quality of the XLE trim with the 16-inch wheels. So that may sway some of you to stay away from the XSE and the SE trim, because those two trims come standard with 18-inch wheels that do make the ride quality a little bit more harsh versus this trim. Visibility is still good. It feels a little bit quieter in here. The seats are also less aggressive. I find them to be still pretty comfortable. This, remember, has the Softex, the leatherette material. But overall, the XLE trim is definitely going to make for a really nice commuter car. Just keep in mind that it doesn't look as nice on the outside. But both this and the XSE trim are going to be built in Toyota's plant in Mississippi. They're also planning to open up a plant in Alabama in 2021. And then the hybrid model is the only one that is imported from their factory in Japan. So I'm going to do my best to not talk about how crossovers are basically killing the sedan market, but in this segment, it's practically a well-known fact because, as you guys know, the American brands have practically pulled out of offering a compact car. The Focus is out of production, Dodge killed the Dart a couple of years ago, and then Chevy is most likely going to be killing the Cruze in the next couple of years as well. So an all-new Corolla, that's kind of interesting that Toyota invested the money, but with sales of this thing globally exceeding 46 million, it's kind of easy to see why. And plus, Toyota says that with the nameplate as successful as the Corolla is, they're not going to be killing this vehicle anytime soon. So a full redesign, it's still a very important thing for a vehicle like this. So after spending the day with the 2020 Corolla sedan, how does it compare with the competition? Well, if you guys like the Corolla hatchback, you're going to basically like the sedan. The sedan version now basically drives like that vehicle. It has a much more sportier dynamic. The additional power that you get from the 2-liter engine is welcome. The CVT is still one of the best CVTs in the industry, and it kind of reminds people that a CVT is better in terms of efficiency and performance in this particular class of vehicle. And if you guys want a manual transmission, Toyota offers that stick in the SE grade. It offers a 1.8 base engine and then offers a hybrid. So Toyota says there's practically a flavor for every buyer, except the fact that they are missing a full-on performance version. So I would love to see Toyota do an actual turbo version of this vehicle. And overall, in terms of its looks, while it's definitely not the most aggressively styled when you look at it from the rear end, I think that it will do well with a lot of Corolla buyers. I am looking forward to driving the next recent competitor, the Mazda 3, next month, which Mazda will be flying me out to actually do that soon. But overall, if you guys are looking for a new version of the Corolla, this 2020 version will basically live up to all of your expectations and maybe even exceed a few of them. So if you guys are looking to put one of these in your driveway, what's it going to cost? Well, when Toyota says that the new Corolla goes on sale next week, it'll start at a base price of $19,500 for the base L. Most of you are probably going to want to spend an additional $400 to go for the LE. That'll give you things like keyless entry, automatic climate control, the 8-inch touchscreen. It's just a really good deal for another $400. If you guys are looking for even more features, or if you want the 2-liter engine, the SE version starts at just under $22,000. The hybrid will also start at a unique price of around $22,900, with the XLE kind of going up in about $1,000 to $2,000 spurts. This XSE version that I'm showing you is a little bit more expensive than last year's model, starting at around $25,950. That actually makes it about $3,000 more expensive than a comparable 2019 XSE version, but considering the fact that Toyota has stuffed this new Corolla with new technology, new features, it drives better, it looks better. It's just not quite as roomy on the inside, which some of you may have an issue with, but just keep in mind that this particular one here is missing a premium package for $1,700 that rolls in factory nav and the QI wireless charging. All in, you could probably spend around $28,000 for a fully loaded Corolla with the 930 destination, but overall I think Toyota has priced it right, and it should still be one of the top sellers in the compact sedan segment when it finally does go on sale. But I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this 2020 Toyota Corolla sedan. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.